Olivia, thank you so much for having us. I'm so happy to be here, see your beautiful project in person.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Me too. As soon as I saw the photos, I knew we had to come see it because I just love how it's so serene, so I guess sort of peaceful, but then there's so much dimension and texture too. And I often feel like a neutral space can be more challenging than a colorful space because it has to be just right. And so I'm thrilled to pick your brain and get to hear all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love color. I don't know if you can tell, these hot pink nails, right? So if you think she's designing neutral spaces, a lot of clients come to us for that because they want a peaceful, serene space. They want a space that they can come home to after work and uncluttered, and they can just clear their mind and be at peace. So we do a lot of neutral spaces. We do color well too. And you'll see that throughout the house. We have pops of color throughout the house. But yeah, neutrals have been our jam for a while. Yeah.
Well, you do it beautifully. And
Thank you.
Like I said, I think sometimes it can be more challenging because you think like, oh, I can just do all these neutral pieces, but then you have to have that softness and that dimension to make it feel warm. And so maybe we start in the just by telling us about your clients and the project. I know there's a little bit of a backstory, so I'd love for you to share that with our listeners.
Yeah, well, this is the first time that we've ever done a project like this. We got a call actually from a friend of mine over at Dove Cabinetry, and they were working with a couple whose home got struck by lightning and caught on fire. So she says to me, Olivia, we're working on this project and these people are amazing. Would you be interested in helping with the design? And I said, absolutely. I always rush at the opportunity to help somebody. And so that's how it all started.
Wow.
And we just helped them navigate that whole process. And they were amazing. And it felt really good to be able to take a lot of those decisions off of their plate, although they were very involved in the process, as a lot of our clients are. But just to not have to worry about the hinge color on the door.
Yeah.
Or what the cabinet hardware looks like.
So many tiny decisions.
Tiny decisions. And you don't think about all the other decisions that have to be made when you're facing with something like lightning striking your house and it catching on fire,
Yeah.
Just the insurance part of it is so difficult to navigate. You've got to catalog all of your things. How many pairs of socks did I own? Like, who knows that?
That side of it, I imagine, would be so hard. So what a blessing to have you to help them make decisions, ones that they know they're going to be happy with in the long term. I mean, that's why I think having a designer is such a great experience, but also you are the expert and you can help them, avoid costly mistakes and things that you can't go back and easily fix.
Yeah. And this was sort of, we'll say, a silver lining in it all was their opportunity to build the house that they really wanted. The house that they had before was gorgeous. This house was really beautiful. It was owned by a landscape architect previously. So it was very well appointed, but it just wasn't quite their style. It was a little bit more traditional. They moved down here from the Midwest. And she, one of the homeowners particularly appreciated mid-century modern design, but it leaned more traditional. So it became our task to figure out how to combine those two styles into a space that made sense for them and their family. So that was interesting. That was the fun part about it.
So walk us through this, downstairs in particular, because I love this open space. There's a lot of function in here.
Yes.
And yet again, it feels so, kind of going back to it feeling so serene. So I'm curious what this lower levels floor plan was like, what changes you made, and did you open it up? Was it already opened up? And then how did you kind of create a vision for how this space would feel?
So this family really uses all spaces in their house. And we had to make sure that each and every space in the house was functional and usable. So you'll see there's no unused corner in the space, and there's no bad seat in the house. There's lots of seats in the house. That's one of the running jokes, is how many chairs can you pack into one space?
Yeah.
But they really use it all. And it was a very open layout before, with the exception that we had really heavy millwork. So there were lots of heavily adorned columns throughout the space that did make it feel more restrictive. So we went ahead and removed all of those. You'll see as you walk through this space, there's nothing vertical that's obstructing your path. And there was a lot of structural work that had to be done in the ceiling. You see these wonderful beams that we have up here, but they are hiding, some structural components that allowed us to be able to open up the space the way that we have. They have 2 young kids. Well, they're not young kids anymore. One's in college and one's about to go to college. So I guess not young.
They go from young to college. So
very quickly.
The beginning of your project, they were young.
In my mind, right? They both weren't in college yet. Being able to have a space where they could hang out with the family, being able to have a dining room where they could seat 10 people was really important because they do love to host friends and family. They love to play board games as a family, and that was a section that they had previously in their dining room dedicated for board games and family puzzles and those types of things. So we needed to make sure that as we were redesigning the space, that we kept areas for those activities to happen. We didn't want to take anything away from them.
Right.
They also enjoy having their morning coffee, so we created this really fun nook in the kitchen, and we can talk about that a little bit more. But it was important because it is a small footprint on this main level here. It was very important to keep the sight lines open to make the space feel as open as possible. We didn't have very high ceilings, so in order for us to get that openness, we really had to clear away some of those vertical structures that were obscuring the view.
So when you're working on the layout like that and you have this list of activities that your client wants to be able to do in the space, are you just mapping it out almost? Like, okay, board game, check, I got a game table. Okay.
Yeah, sort of. So when I was in design school, that's one of the first things that we did before we developed a floor plan. We would do this bubble mapping activity where we would have our general footprint of the space. And my husband and I are even doing this right now. We're dreaming what the next house looks like. And then you just draw circles. It's like a circle diagram in different areas to say this area is dedicated for TV watching. This area will be dedicated for board games. We know that this is our dining area. So we wanted to make sure that we checked off all of those boxes before we started doing any of our furniture searching, because that informed what pieces we would need moving forward.
Yeah.
And there were other elements that they wanted to add. There were elements that they wanted to maintain. So for instance, in the living room where we're sitting right now, this fireplace didn't exist before.
Oh. Okay.
We added that. They're from the Midwest, and they love warming up next to a cozy fire when it's really cold outside. And we wanted to be able to give them that option in this house, and they didn't have that before. So that was a great feature that we were able to add at this juncture.
You mentioned the beams that are sort of doing some structural work, but I loved them because, looking at the space as a whole, there's so many wood tones in here. And I think that does kind of go back to the warmth that we were talking about earlier. But you've mixed lots of wood tones.
Yes.
And I think that is something that trips me up. I know it probably trips up a lot of people because you sort of try to ask yourself, can I put this can I do this with this coffee table, which is more whitewashed? The game table is more of a mahogany. You've got the cabinets. So there's a lot of different ones mixing together. And I'm wondering, what is your sort of guideline or how are you thinking about wood tones in a space when you are trying to bring lots together?
So that's what gives the space interest, right? If everything was the same, monotone, it wouldn't be as interesting. So I always look at building a design. It's like storytelling, So if I tell you my daughter's name is Maya. Maya wanted candy and went to the store. Kind of a boring story, right?
Yeah.
It's just very simple. But then if I layer the story and I say, Maya woke up one morning, she had a really great dream about Candyland, and it gave her this craving for candy. So she came into mom's room and knocked on our door, as I'm building up the story. Like, you want to know, how did Maya get to the candy store? Did she get the candy that she liked? It's much more interesting.
Yeah.
From Louisiana, I always bring this up. It's like a gumbo. The more ingredients you add, the more flavorful the dish is. And so I build my designs in the same way. So in this space, you'll see we do have a lot of different warm tones like you named. We have the white oak. We have more mahogany, darker finishes. We have some wire brushed bleach finishes. But the undertones and all the woods lean warm.
Yes.
And that's what helps to marry them all together.
Yes. Okay. So they're all in that sort of warm yellow family, but then you're you're changing up the darkness or lightness.
That's right.
But it's all in that same warm family.
It's all in that same warm family. Or some may have a touch more red, some may have a touch more yellow, but they all have warm, so red, yellow, orange undertones, as opposed to blue, green, purple. I'm an artist at heart, so I'm a geek about color theory. No, I really get into it.
That's an easy, not easy, but that's a more simplified way to think about it. I think that gives you some room to play and not feel like you have to match, but there is a cohesiveness.
Yes,
that
it's
easy to follow.
It's the thread that ties it all together.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, you asked earlier about a neutral space and how do we make it interesting, because that can be challenging when everything is neutral. So for me, it's two-part. It's playing with textures, and then it's also playing with the tones of the neutrals. So it's reverse in that sense. I feel that if you mix warm neutrals with cool neutrals in a space, that also adds interest. Exactly. Like we have really warm, this velvet is a warm neutral. Our sofa has a blue undertone to it. And that's what helps it pop and vibrate, right? Because this neutral, for instance, has more of a golden yellow undertone to it. This sofa is a gray that has more of a blue undertone to it. Those two are opposite on the color wheel.
Yes.
So they are going to make each other stand out.
Okay, that is genius, because I have often thought of using the color wheel. You see people use blue and orange together, and that is so like magnetizing in the room.
Yes.
But I had never necessarily thought about it with neutrals. So that's that's so smart, and
everything has an undertone. And I think that's really important to understand and pay attention to when you are trying to balance colors, when you are wanting to create interest in a space and tell a story. It really does play into that in a big way, actually.
Yeah. Is there, I do think there are occasions where you might see a neutral that is the contrasting undertone and feel like it looks out of place. This does not, and I'm curious why that is, I guess.
In this space, why the blue doesn't?
Yeah.
Well, we've tied it in with pillows, and we bounce the colors around. So in the case of the beautiful sofa that you're sitting on, but what we did now is the pillow that's right behind you has not only that gray-blue color in it, it also has some of those golden wheat-colored neutrals in it as well. So that helps tie this area that you're sitting in, this moment that we're having here, to these chairs, because this has that wheat-colored neutral velvet on it. So everything just ties together. We bounce the colors back to like the shades behind you. That's a warm neutral. Exactly. The artwork has some blue in it, which is really nice. We put accent pillows in our chairs that have those touches of cool undertones to it. So it really is about balancing. I always say, well, let me throw some of that color over there,
Okay.
And then it marries the entire space together.
Okay. That makes sense. And being purposeful about it, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. Very intentional, very purposeful. And, for me, it's a feeling. Even more so than what my eye can pick up when I'm in the space and I'm styling. It's, that feels good. Even things that look good on paper and intellectually, you think will look good, in real life doesn't. So you get in there. Part of it is science. It's the science of design. The other part is just the play.
So are you installing it and sort of tweaking things based on, like, once you get it in?
Yeah, we get the main pieces down. We have our fabrics, and we know what looks good in the studio when we're putting it together.
Right.
Sometimes when you get it on site, the lighting is different. The natural light coming through the windows is different. We bring some extra things in on install and just toss it around and see how we feel. Yeah, I always leave that room just to play in the end and see what feels good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because as good as your imagination is, I'm sure it's not the same as reality.
It's not, and it can't consider every single factor that happens once you get into a space.
Yeah.
And, like I said, design is supposed to be fun, so you have to leave some areas for play in there. Like, everything can't be so rigid. Yeah.
I do want to talk about the dining room, because I loved that space and was so intrigued by it because there's so many square angles. There's a very square table, the chairs, you have your head chairs, which are sort of a barrel back, but the side chairs, there's the windows, there's the cabinetry, there's a big square painting over the fire. There's a fireplace.
Yes.
A lot of squares. But there is a softness too, which was hard to figure out, like, okay, where is she getting that softness from? Like, how is it feeling balanced despite there being so many angles? So I was curious if you could walk us through that and sort of what was your thought process and how are you creating the softness in a space that is so, I guess, sharp?
Yeah. And it's so funny because you go through the process and a lot of it is feeling driven. I definitely think about it and I'm intentional about some decisions, but some things you just know, like you said, we're designing, this dining table is so rectangular. It does have hard edges. What can we do to soften up those hard edges? Well, let's do these barrel back chairs, host and hostess chairs. We know our table is dark and that has a visual weight to it. Then let's do these really light linen panels on the windows just to really soften that space up. The chandelier over the dining table is amazing, right? And I think that has a lot to do with the softness and the playfulness that you feel in that space, even though there are so many angular elements in that space because it's so organic.
Yeah.
Even the globes on the chandelier itself has this blown glass.
Yeah, they're not perfect.
They're not perfect. Exactly. Yeah. The wires looping are not perfect. And if you look at the art piece, even though it is a rectangular piece, it's framed that way, the actual art itself is very organic. There's a lot of movement to it. So it's that balance again. You have some straight lines, but okay, how can we break that up? It's with curves.
You're right. Without that chandelier, it would be a completely different feeling space. And that does so much to add that organic kind of vibe in there.
Yeah. If we had done like a linear, just straight up and down chandelier, it would have felt a little more hard in that space. So I think it really did a lot to soften it up, to give it some playfulness, to give it some airiness. Yeah. So kudos to the chandelier. That's what you're picking up on.
No,
that's what did it for you.
Kudos to you. I just loved that dining room. And then I also was so intrigued by the office. It's a very small office, but it has a lot of drama and impact because it's so dark. So talk to us about that because, most of this downstairs area is so light, so open. And then you've got this little sort of moody nook off of the dining room. So where did that come from?
You've got to have some drama somewhere, right? We can have some neutral moments, but let's shake it up. That office before was just an open sitting area. They didn't get a whole lot of function. My clients didn't get a whole lot of function out of it. It just became, you can see we have a lot of sitting areas already. It just became another one. So we were tasked with how to make this functional for them. Again, we were in the middle of this process in 2022. So you're still thinking back end of COVID, people are still working from home. And so how can we make this a space that's functional for when they want to work at home? Because before it didn't have doors. It was just flanked by these columns, which were everywhere around the entire house. And there was no privacy in there. If my client wanted to have a Zoom call, that was very difficult for them to do, which they didn't even use that for Zoom calls. Again, it was just another unused sitting area. And so we decided to close it off. We have those beautiful steel doors that we absolutely love. It was important that if we were going to close it off and create this moody moment, which we did, we still needed to have a lot of light flow through that space.
Yes.
So we created those sliding steel and glass doors, but then added those side lights on the side as well, just to maximize the amount of light that flows through that area.
Yeah.
And because it's closed off and it's its own separate area, that provided us an opportunity to do something different. This space is so wide open that it makes sense for the white walls to flow throughout the entire main level. But since that was closed off, it was like, okay, we have a cutting off point. Let's do something fun back here.
Yeah.
And blue seemed to be the accent color that we were using throughout in this space. So it was only natural to pull it in that office.
Yeah. So you've taken that same blue, just gone way deeper on the other side of the,
That's right. And created a moment in there. And it's this small, tiny space, but it gets really great light from the window on the front of the house. And with that steel door, like I said, allowing the light to flow through, it gave us the opportunity to go darker and it wouldn't feel so claustrophobic in there.
Our audience wouldn't know this, but it's a south-facing window. So I bet that, to your point, you didn't want to lose that light into the rest of the house. So that's really smart. Just seeing the steel doors, I was kind of thinking, it's just a sort of that drama. It's just a focal point, but it's really more functional.
It's functional, for sure. It's both.
Yeah.
And that's when design sings, right? When you get the best of both worlds. It's pretty and it's functional. It works. It's useful.
Yeah.
but I'm also very practical in my thinking about things.
Yeah.
I've got 2 kids at home. I have a home office. So I'm constantly thinking about how would I want this space to function for me, and also considering what my clients' needs are too. And so stuff like that, making sure that it's beautiful, but it's also useful. That's the Capricorn in me, I guess.
Well, no, I mean, because if it's luxurious, it doesn't matter if you're not going to use it, because then it doesn't feel luxurious if you're not using it. You know what I mean? You don't get to enjoy it.
Yes.
So it has to be practical.
I love that steel door. That turned out really well. And then, we do have the dark color on the walls and on the cabinetry in there, but we've also balanced it with the lightness in the chairs and the lightness in the artwork. We have great lighting in there, which helps too.
Yeah.
So I love it. It's just,
I want to work.
It's a fun space. I know, me too. I would say, can I come visit the house from time to time?
You're out of town. Just use it as my backup.
I always say this process is like having a baby. You create this thing and you nurture it for so long, and then at the end, it's birth, but you gotta leave it, and that's sad. I don't want to leave my baby. Can I come back and visit sometime?
Yeah. Well, you get to be here today, so that's good.
Yes, and they always invite us back, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, on the topic of wood tones, we got to talk about the kitchen, because that's really kind of where I think the wood tone starts. You've got the floors, you've got the beautiful island, the section of cabinetry with the antique mirror and the beams. So that was kind of where I was like, wow, she's mixed this all together, but it looks so effortless. And it has a touch of that traditional vibe that the original house, which I think was 1939, had. But yet it's all updated. So walk us through the kitchen. What were they looking for, and what were you, I guess, trying to achieve with the finishes that you picked?
Yeah, well, remember I told you the cabinetry is where they started first.
True.
So the kitchen was sort of designed. They had a general idea, and they knew they wanted to do a 2-tone mix there. So we had a wood island that we knew was probably going to stay. And we had to figure out how to make everything else work around it, which, I mean, that's not a difficult thing to do. We started there, knew that with the design of the new kitchen, we wanted to be able to seat as many people around the island as possible. That was important. So while we do have those traditional elements, like you said, that's part of that original style of the house, we do have some modern touches too, like that cantilever waterfall off of the island, the more modern type chairs that are around it. And, we designed with the family in mind. Their daughter was going off to college. It was their son's almost final year in high school. And so we really wanted this to be a space where they can just hang out as a family, and they can invite family and friends to come over and create new memories. That's also a big part of having to rebuild after a fire. Like, you lose so many of those memories that you had, photos that you had, and belongings that you had that meant so much to you. And so it was really important for us to be able to create this house that gave them a sense of peace and a sense of belonging, and a place where they could come and create those new family memories. So we had that at the forefront of our minds when we created the kitchen. So maximizing the seating in the kitchen. So you'll also see this really nice breakfast nook over there in the corner. And not just for the family, they have 3 amazing dogs.
Oh, wow.
And that's their favorite place. Yes.
You get to watch the cars go by.
Yeah. So they have this cute little pug. Her name is Rosie. She loves to sit in the sun. So any sunlit area, that's where Rosie's going to be. And then Blue is the one that likes to sit on the top of the banquette and bark at the people coming by. That's his favorite spot. So we had the dogs in mind when we created the spaces too. Lots of light fabrics. We use lots of light fabrics, but they're performance fabrics. That was important. And then specifically with mixing the finishes in the kitchen, even though we have different wood tones, and we brought in like a soft white color, it's Greek Villa from Sherwin-Williams, we also use brass as our accent metal in there, which has a warm undertone to it as well. So that's what brings all of that together. We have a stainless steel sink, which the family wanted, but then we also balance that, of course, with the appliances that are stainless steel, and that wonderful hood above the range is stainless steel with brass strapping on it.
Yes.
So again, you can use a lot of different materials in a space. I feel that a lot of times clients get apprehensive about that. It's the safer thing to select finishes that all match. The light fixtures match the faucet, matches the cabinet hardware. it's okay to mix. You just have to balance everything out. Our counter stools have black metal on them. And so that's really what gives interest. When you asked before, if we have such a neutral space, how do you make it interesting?
Yeah.
That's one way to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's, I think often people want to go to this very dramatic moment to make it interesting, but sometimes lots of tiny little details can create that same, interest without it having to be like this one huge brushstroke. You've got lots of like texture throughout, and that builds upon itself and creates this, kind of more subtle but warm and interesting, kind of feeling.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Texture's huge.
Yeah.
Right? We can have lots of neutrals. If they're all flat fabrics, it'll come across flat to the eye. But if you change up the textures, and it doesn't always have to be in fabrics. You mentioned the break front that's in the nook that has the antique mirror on it that provides a different texture, and also some reflectivity to make that corner still feel really light. Right? So we were very intentional when designing the spaces to make sure that, yes, it's beautiful. Yes, it's functional, but that it all makes sense aesthetically as well. So I love all the mix of the materials. We have glass and antique mirror. We have quartzite and we have brass. And I mean, you name it. We have boucle. We have so many things going on, but it still feels very soft and inviting.
Yeah. It's so, and just the pictures are beautiful, but being here in person, it
feels
so
different,
good.
right?
Yeah. It's so pretty. Yeah.
It's difficult to capture the essence of a space sometimes in photos. So I'm happy you were able to come and actually experience it.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. So I would love to go upstairs because I loved all the bedrooms upstairs. I know that that's where a lot of the damage was, and, sort of rethinking the spaces. So tell us about the bedrooms. They all have this, their own sort of unique personality, but they flow really nicely. And I'm curious how you do that. So kind of share what the thinking was and how you thought through each space.
Yeah. So upstairs, you walk upstairs, you come across this wonderful family gallery wall, which we absolutely love. It's an ode to the house before, but then it also gives them the opportunity to hang photos of new memories. Again, creating this home for them was creating a space to help them have new memories with their family. You hang a left turn and go through the cased opening, and the first room that you get to on the left is their daughter's room, which is one of my favorites, right?
It's fun, yeah.
And so the kids really drove the designs in their own room. They were very specific about the things that they liked and the colors that they wanted to see. And it was important for us that, especially for their daughter who was about to go off to college, that room felt like her space. It wasn't some designers came in and they gave me a room and it's pretty, but it doesn't feel like me. We got a lot of input from the kids on the rooms. So she's very girly. She's very much into sparkles and cowboy boots and fashion, and the room really reflects that. We have lots of different textures. She wanted white. A lot of teens today are very much into the white on white, and that can be tricky too to pull off and still make look interesting.
Yeah.
Because we all know whites have so many undertones. But we have white walls with this furry, shaggy white rug, and on top this white boucle bed. But we popped some color in the pillows and in the throw, and then above the bed is my favorite moment, I think, of the entire house. It looks like you like it too. It's the disco ball lips.
Oh my God,
so much
fun. I've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah, we found those on Cherish, and when we saw it, I was like, that's it. That's going to be it. So that provides that unexpected moment of fun in that space. And then she has her makeup vanity and all the fun things that girls have in their rooms. Down the hallway at the very end is her brother's room. And he's very much into music and fashion. The room is based on that. We have this really great art wall above his headboard, where we asked him to give us posters of his favorite artists and magazine covers. So you'll see a little bit of everything mixed in there. Yeah. And that became a balance of color and context, how to make that art installation successful. And then we popped some of the colors out from the artwork, threw it on the bed. And that's his place. And he loves it. It's super cozy. We darkened the walls there. So you asked, how do we have continuity running through the spaces when they all have their own personalities? I would say the through line in each space is just a very tailored look.
Yes.
Even in their daughter's bedroom, where it is a little bit more feminine, the bed is streamlined. The nightstands are streamlined. There's nothing that's overly fussy in the room. And I would say that you'll see that same concept running throughout all of the spaces, even in the primary bedroom. And that's how those feel that they work together, even though they look very different.
Going back to the daughter's room, I did love that space because it does feel so youthful with the lips and I think there's like skateboards.
Yes,
too.
yeah.
It's very girly, but I can also imagine, 5 years from now, she's out of college, she's a young adult. Maybe she is not into what she's into when you worked with them to design a space when she was in high school. That could very easily transition into a more grown-up kind of, you add some more sort of grown-up textiles on the bed.
Absolutely.
Swap some things out, and it's a very grown-up space too. So I loved that sort of simple base.
Yes.
That could transition easily into later in life.
The staples are, like you said, simple. I feel they're timeless, and they can transition with her from one space to another. When she decides to get her own place, I mean, those disco ball lips can go above a sofa.
Exactly.
And a living room would be so much fun.
Yeah.
Same with their son's room. That bed is just, it's modern in style, but it's a chameleon. It can fit in so many different styled spaces. It doesn't have to be a modern style space. So it will transform as his style transforms. Yeah. And then back down the hallway towards the stairs, you'll see the primary bedroom. That room was, it was quite a challenge. It looks nothing like that before.
What was it like before?
The ceiling was flat, so we didn't have that vaulted ceiling. That's something that we added. That big window wasn't there. It was a smaller window, and it was off to the side. There's also over by the dresser area, you can see the dresser tucks neatly into this niche space. And the way that we were able to create that space was from the fireplace downstairs in the living room. We needed to have a chase for the fireplace to vent out of the house, which was great that happened because it actually provided for some symmetry on the bed wall that didn't exist before. So now our bed is nice and centered in that space. And that allowed us to do this really fun ceiling design in there. We vaulted the ceiling as high as we could take it, which is why there's a flat section in the middle. And we wanted that space to be serene, an escape, spa-like, peaceful. And our clients, they gave us an idea of what they wanted, but they just said, go with it. And that's what we did.
It's really pretty.
Thank you.
I imagine that window, especially, right now it's winter.
Yes.
But I imagine in the summer when everything is green, that is just a gorgeous
It's beautiful.
view. Yeah.
We call it the treehouse.
Yes.
That room is like a treehouse. You know that you're in the city, but it doesn't feel like you're in the city when you're in that space.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's their own little escape inside of their own house.
Right.
So we kept the colors very light. We wanted it to feel dreamlike, but again, layered on a lot of textures for interest. Right? So we have that chunky throw on the bed. We popped some contrast on those slate blue pillows that are on the bed. And it's one of my favorite spaces. We layered rugs to make it very cozy in there. Our drapes are nice and soft in color and texture. And it just, like I said, it feels like a little
It's
little
very
tiny
elegant,
escape.
but also sort of in an organic way. I don't know necessarily why, but it does feel relaxed but elegant at the same time.
So I think it's the layering of the textures that gives it that feel. It's the wool in the rug and it's the linen in the bedding. And once you start to layer all those textures together, that's what gives you that cozy feel, but also that visual interest that they wanted. Yeah. And then we added this wonderful 4-poster bed that takes your eye all the way up to the ceiling to see that lovely tongue and groove ceiling design with the wood beams. And it all works.
Yeah.
I want to sleep there.
And the bathroom. What a great bathroom.
Yeah.
I mean, elegant, just like I think it's the poster bed that adds that sort of elegance and dressiness, I guess.
Yeah, it gives it a bit of formality. It does. And the bathroom, we just wanted it to be an extension of the bedroom. The layout of the bathroom stayed the same for the most part. We did open up that shower while it was walled in with a small glass door before. So we just made that an entire wall of glass so that it feels more open than it did before. And we kept all the finishes fairly light for the same reason.
Yeah, it's very pretty. Well, I just absolutely loved getting to see every space. You mentioned this before, but you can tell that they use every single square inch.
Yes.
And every square inch is truly purposeful and beautiful. So y'all did an amazing job, and it's just fun to see, and I'm thrilled we get to share it with people. So,
well, thank you. I'm thrilled that you came and everyone gets to see the work and to hear the story of our clients. And, there's always a silver lining somewhere. So what started out as a tragedy, a disaster, if you will, turned into an opportunity for us to make this the home of their dreams, really. And that's all we can ask for as designers.
Yeah. And what a blessing that they had you to help tackle a project that I'm sure was overwhelming, in addition to being so sad and traumatic. But I'm glad that they had you to do it in a way that maybe was easier to accomplish.
Yeah, I'm happy we were there to help them too. That's the stuff that warms my soul, and lights up my spirit. So we love them and we love this house.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For more house tours like this one, be sure to subscribe to Ballard Design's YouTube channel and follow us on social media.